loan officers, realtors, or entrepreneurs who are doing this for the first time because they don't know what they're doing, right? They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do next. They don't know the expectations at all, like zero background in terms of virtual assistant vetting. So that's where, companies like Remote Assistant Scout can come in and assist you, which is backed up by a mortgage loan officer. I mean, mortgage loan virtual assistant myself. I was a prior mortgage loan officer assistant. So I knew exactly where I know, the ins and outs of the business and where the virtual assistant could possibly plug in.
Right.
And there could be other agencies out there that you can look up into in Google that offers, a virtual assistant vetting services. So really, if you're new into this business, that would be a great step for you to know what the industry is all about, how you could work well with a virtual assistant, and how you could set those right expectations, because that could stem, failure could also stem from that, as you mentioned, the number 4.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Loan Officer Growth, the podcast that helps loan officers grow their business, increase their success, and have more freedom. Cool. You are listening to the right podcast if you are wondering what are the top 4 reasons loan officers fail with outsourcing and how to avoid those pitfalls. And we have today Gerard Arboleda. I said that wrong. I don't know why I always say that wrong. But Gerard is kind of like Prince or Adele. He just has one name. It's Gerard. Gerard is here with Remote Assistant Scout, and he's going to talk virtual assistants and outsourcing with us. And like I said, the top 4 pitfalls, top 4 things and reasons that loan officers fail. So, Gerard, how are you doing today? How's your day going?
Well, thank you again, Richard, for having me. It's going great. It's 9 in the evening here in the Philippines.
Very
And I
nice.
really appreciate you inviting me again today. And I can't wait to discuss with you guys, the pitfalls and why other entrepreneurs, business owners, realtors, and loan officers fail in hiring a virtual assistant.
Yep. So let's just dive right in. So number one reason is loan officers fail is they hire the wrong person. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, but I just want to know, Richard, what is the wrong person for you? So how do you kind of describe it per se?
So usually if we hire somebody, we have expectations on their performance. So we can rate them 1 through 10. You can't use 7. So 1 through 10, they would either rate an 8, 9, or a 10, or a 1 through 6. And we're rating their performance. But what we're really doing is we're looking at the results that they're giving. So if you have a new hire, you give proper training up front, you let them know what they need to do for the day in, day out, and then what those results need to be. So if we look, for example, we hire a virtual assistant to make outbound phone calls and set appointments with realtors. That's a really big strategy right now that loan officers are using. So let's say you have the virtual assistant working 2 hours a day, making those outbound calls. For that one particular strategy, the results that you expect should be anywhere from 8 to 12 appointments a week based off of the 10 hours that they're working. So really, on average, most loan officers will get an appointment an hour that a virtual assistant is making outbound calls. So let's say you have a virtual assistant, they're making calls, they schedule 0 or they schedule 1 in a week. You want to give them some ramp up time. So the first week is getting, used to the script and what they're doing and what they're performing. So then let's say 3-4 weeks go by and they're still not scheduling appointments. It looks to me like they have the wrong person. So So hiring the wrong person might be that you've gotten somebody with skills in other parts of the job. So they might be really good at doing online work. They might be really good at social media, but not necessarily making phone calls. So you get the wrong person, and it kind of leads right into number two is a loan officer fails at firing fast enough. And, we don't necessarily, yes.
Yes, I just really have to add to that, to the number one of hiring the wrong person, because
Yep.
I guess in line with hiring the wrong person is offering a wrong rate per hour for the virtual
Yes.
assistant. Because, for example, qualified outbound telemarketers or appointment setters in today's market really would range between $6 to $8 per hour. And, just basing on, our vetting and hiring experience, there would be clients kind of like, offering $5 per hour and yet expecting more out of the VA. So just really more of, having the wrong offer and the wrong expectations, because sometimes, the $5 person, their qualifications might not be, as similar or, or the same with those candidates asking for an $8 or $9 per hour rate. And typically, with this high caliber candidates, they've been exposed to telemarketing duties, to cold calling duties, to appointment setting duties for more than 3 years. So this is something that they do and they're best at, compared
Yes.
to, the $5 rate, which would only attract newbies into the business, or,
Yeah.
attract newbies into the position, especially with cold calling. I mean, it's not an easy task. Not everybody likes them. And, you have to develop this thick skin and, in rebutting those objections. So just basing on experience, there are newbies that could be working well, but mostly those newbies would quit because of the pressure in comparison to those candidates who have already done this before and, developed thick skin and talking to and interacting with diverse clients with different objections and what have you.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
So
That falls right in there, hiring the wrong person.
having the wrong offer as well.
Yes.
So
Well, that falls right within there. Yeah, because if your expectation is I'm going to get somebody new with a great attitude, sometimes it works, but it always doesn't, because they don't have that experience.
Well, actually, it does. It's always a risk whether you're going to be hiring, an experienced person or an experienced person. Again, as what you mentioned, it's really all about results. But the value that somebody would give you if you're, like offering a higher rate is that, as aforementioned, they're well versed with cold calling. They don't feel uncomfortable anymore in doing those cold calls for you and setting those appointments. It would be a lot easier for them to rebut those objections. And the training period will be a lot shortened compared to, working with newbies. However, just basing on our vetting experience, we've hired newbies who totally digged it. And we've had, experienced people who are actually like, just so in doing those tasks. So then again, this is a business risk that everybody is taking, just like hiring an in-house employee.
Right. Exact same thing. And that's a whole nother subject, is treating your virtual just as you would with any in-house employee.
Yeah. And another thing, though, hiring the wrong person, and I think this applies to, to those loan officers, realtors, or entrepreneurs who are doing this for the first time, because, they don't know what they're doing, right? They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do next. They don't know the expectations at all, like zero. background in terms of virtual assistant vetting. So that's where, companies like Remote Assistant Scout can come in and assist you, which is backed up by a mortgage loan officer. I mean, mortgage loan virtual assistant myself. I was a prior mortgage loan officer assistant. So I knew exactly where I know, the ins and outs of the business and where the virtual assistant could possibly plug in.
Right.
And there could be other agencies out there that can look up into in Google that offers, a virtual assistant vetting services. So really, if you're new into this business, that will be a great step for you to know what the industry is all about, how you could work well with a virtual assistant, and how you could set those right expectations, because that could stem, failure could also stem from that, as you mentioned, the number 4. And we can discuss about that later.
Yep. So what are your thoughts? Let's say a loan officer hires the wrong person. The expectation was, I'm going to get somebody as cheap as I can get, $5 an hour, and they realize that they have the wrong person. What is that mistake number 2?
Yeah. So actually our client base is kind of like diverse. So there are clients who would consider doing some warnings in terms of firing virtual assistant or replacing virtual assistant who actually didn't work out, or maybe they have issues in terms of their work ethics, work behavior. And we've had clients who would actually hire faster than anybody else.
Right.
If they encountered like just a minor issue, they would fire the person right away. And again, this business, since we are working remotely, I just have to go back into the fundamental basics of virtual assistant or working with virtual assistant, that this is remote and this is based solely on trust. So if you feel like you cannot trust the virtual assistant working for you and, doing the results for you, and then perhaps it's really time to fire that virtual assistant right away. And as what you mentioned, Richard, before, that, whenever firing comes to your mind, and then, just execute it right away.
Yeah, I think most loan officers have a big heart and they don't want, to fire somebody. It's hard to do. But I think holding on to that wrong person for a long period of time makes you feel like that it just doesn't work for me, or hiring people remote doesn't really work, when we know it does work very, very well for most people. So it is about, taking that step, making a business decision and getting the right person. Because honestly, when you have the wrong person, they don't feel they're in the right position either. And you're holding them back by holding on to them. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. And yeah. And also, I just have to add that if ever this is your first time working with virtual assistants, right, you may ask, how do I know that I should fire them? Because technically you don't know how the system works, right? You really don't have an idea what are the standard operating procedures of working with a virtual assistant, what are the right expectations. And that's where we come in as well, because, typically clients would ask for advice, like, hey, Gerard, is this valid? Or Gerard, is this possible? Or is this normal? And that's where we come in and give it our advice that, hey, this is not totally okay. And we really suggest, replacing the virtual assistant. So there's a lot really of benefits of, of working with agencies, because at least they can give you like a head-on advice as to how you want to go, not just with working with virtual assistant, but how to not work with.
Right. What are some of those red flags that people should take note on?
Mm-hmm. Really is on the on responsiveness of the virtual assistant. Like, for example, we are working remotely. We are working on a different side of the world. So we are on an opposite time zone. So in Texas, it's 8:21 a.m. It's 9:21 p.m. here. So that's really the cons, because, at some point, you could typically ask, like, how do I know if the virtual assistant is really working? Well, aside from the fact that you could just barely or solely based on their results. But at
Right.
some point there could be some urgent tasks in between. Like, hey, like for example, hey VA, I need you to do this. Hey VA, are you there? So if you feel like the virtual assistant is unresponsive or not responding to you on a timely basis or in a timely manner, so that is 100% red flag. Because at the end of the day, we're just in front of our computer working, right?
Right.
Even if we have some tasks, doing some current tasks for clients. I mean, if they respond 3 hours or 4 hours later, and then that's a bad sign.
Right. And that's with any employee, any team member. The expectation is to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Any
And
other
what are your
red flags?
experience, Richard? Oh, red flag. Oh, working with virtual assistant. I mean, don't send advance money. So that is the number one. I mean, the number two, rather. I mean, if you encounter candidates asking you, especially if they're working um during their first weeks with you guys, so you're
Right.
still in the trust building process. So if they're kind of like asking for cash advances, and then that is also a red flag. Or maybe you could consider like not necessarily helping them out, but you can just tell them that
Oh, looks like we lost Gerard, and we will see if he gets back on. So I'm going to jump right in, and oh, here he comes. I'm going to jump in and talk about that red flag that Gerard was talking about. So go ahead, Gerard.
Yeah, so the other red flag is, sending out cash advances to the virtual assistants. I'm just going to make it a little simpler for you guys that, if your virtual assistant is still working during their first weeks with you, and then you don't necessarily have to give out cash advances. All you can say to them is, I'm going to be compensating you well, giving you some incentives for the good work that you're going to do. And, as simple as that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
a little unprofessional at the beginning of a relationship to request something like that. So
It is.
so
And not very normal, not very common.
right, exactly. And that's a red flag that you might have the wrong person. So
Mm.
tell me,
And
let's
another
talk
red flag,
about, oh, go ahead.
yes. And another red flag would be, candidates with no equipment or, with the wrong equipment. Like, for example, we are working remotely, we are solely relying on power and internet connection.
Yep.
So if your candidates don't have any backup plans or contingency plans in case of power outages and internet connectivity issues, and then that candidate might not be for you. This is somewhat expected from them. The equipment is already provided, laptops, internet. So those are the initial investments, working as a virtual assistant. And don't
Exactly.
send anything to your VA because some clients would send out computers or laptops or send out money to have the virtual assistant buy a new one. So if you're generous enough, and that's totally okay, and if you feel like comfortable doing that, 100% okay, but it's not very common and it's not a recommended practice.
Yeah, and that falls right in as far as hiring the right person, because it's expected that they have all of those: great internet connectivity, power to where they're going to be working, have a contingency plan in case there is a storm that comes in, but they have some sort of plan. They have the right equipment. So yeah, that falls right within somebody that hires the wrong person, doesn't get rid of them quick enough. And then they fall right into that reason number three, which is they give up too easily. And so we've seen loan officers fall into these traps and then feel like, well, it just doesn't work. Having someone remote doesn't work, when it really does. It's just that they're giving up too quickly and too easily. It kind of reminds me of when I first hired a virtual assistant. I had an issue come up where the virtual assistant kept falling asleep. And so I gave her another
Mm-hmm.
chance. She did it again. I gave her another chance. So I fell right within all of these biggest mistakes that loan officers have with outsourcing. Because number one, I hired the wrong person because she didn't have experience working the graveyard shift. She didn't have experience doing the things that I wanted her to do. I didn't fire her
Mm-hmm.
fast enough because she was not giving results. She was falling asleep. I had a big heart. I wanted to help her. And then giving up too easily, that's where I did not fail. So, but I see a lot of people fall within that trap where they realize, or they feel like, yes, that's this isn't going to work for me. You know, she keeps falling asleep. VAs don't work from the Philippines, blah, blah, blah. And they have that fallacy and they give up too easy. So I didn't give up. I hired another one, had issues with that one, fired quickly this time, and then hired another one and got the unicorn. So giving up too easy, a lot of loan officers do that unless they utilize a service like Remote Assistant Scout where they can help prevent those mistakes from happening. Do you agree with that?
Yes, and it's also really on the expectations on the client's end because at the end of the day, hiring a virtual assistant is also like hiring an in-house assistant. It may work or it may not.
Right.
And if it doesn't, you just don't completely give up hiring an in-house assistant, right? You still keep looking. It's just the same thing. While
Exactly.
working with, or firing an assistant and finding a new one.
Yep.
So similar idea.
Very similar. Yeah. And you have to think about it that way too. They're the a
And
remote. Mhm.
in terms of giving up too easily, so there could be factors that would influence their decision that, hey, Richard, it's not really working, I'm gonna give up, because maybe they don't have the time to vet another person, right?
Right.
It's a busy week, it's end of the month, or I'm on holidays, so I really don't have the time, so I'm just gonna let go and just give up. So that's where agencies like Remote Assistant Scout could actually come in and help you out, because whenever you feel like it's not really working out at all, if you're firing a candidate, you have a team or qualified team members that could help you out and finding a replacement, and finding a person that would actually work for you, because no system is perfect.
Right.
Even in ourselves, we are on the same page here. We expect the same level of professionalism and ethics from the candidates that we send clients to, right? So we are on the same page here. We are in the same team, and that is our goal of of really hiring somebody who's qualified for the job and would do great work for you. And really, just go back into the idea that sometimes that's a problem.
Yeah, and that falls right within number 4 of the biggest failures that loan officers have hiring virtual assistants is they don't communicate proper expectations up front, and that that's exactly what you do with Remote Assistant Scout is you understand and you communicate the proper expectations from the beginning. And then once that loan officer does have that VA working for them, they've got to have those proper expectations. They've got to give them result driven activities that X amount of appointments a week, what's expected. So, and then, proper expectations. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, proper expectations and more like realistic
Yes.
expectations. Because we kind of like follow a standard here. Like, for example, whenever you do the Thor's hammer or the appointment setting with realtors, the standard here is really 10 to 15 appointments per week. And this pertains to one VA catering that kind of number or that standard number. However, we've encountered clients who happens to have, like different loan officers under their umbrella, and they're kind of like expecting the VA to do like 50 to 100 appointments per day, which is kind of, unrealistic. I've done
Right.
Thor's Hammer before. I've done those appointments and calls with realtors, and not every day or not every week is a Christmas week. So there could be days where it can go to 0, and there are days where it can set 10 appointments, right? And I'm not
Yep.
talking per week, per day. So I've experienced it myself, so I know exactly how it goes. There could be low days, especially if the list is saturated. But we just really have to go back into the standard of 10 to 15 appointments per week, and the right number of workload to the virtual assistant. So for example, if you're a big company and you have like 15 loan officers under your umbrella, so might as well consider hiring 5 to 10 virtual assistants who would actually do the job for you, because you can just expect one VA to cover all the appointment setting calls for all of your loan officers.
Right.
It may work now, but it may not work later. And we really don't want you to think that, it's really on the virtual assistants, productivity issues. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So
Even the
sometimes
very
it just
best.
be really.
Yeah, the very best callers can get burnt out easy.
Mm-hmm.
So having those
Mm-hmm.
proper expectations, like I always let people know, build out their time blocks. Never make calls more than 2 hours straight. Give a break. Have them do something that's not making calls for an hour, so they can get back on the phone and not get burnt out working straight 8 hours a day making phone calls.
Mm-hmm. And not just with phone calls. So, like, for example, we take into the tech aspect of the business. So you can expect a telemarketer to know video editing,
Right.
or at least be an expert with video editing. So video editing falls under the umbrella of digital marketing. And just the same thing with digital marketers in today's market. I mean, they're doing non-voice activities because, number one, maybe they're not comfortable doing some phone calls. And number two, they might not be very good English speakers. So because we've encountered clients that, hey, Gerard, I need a telemarketer who does TikTok, or who does video editing, or who does video marketing. So we could find a unicorn for you guys, but it is a long shot.
Right.
So, and especially in today's market, that virtual assistants tend to put themselves into specific niches. Like, hey, I'm just into telemarketing. Like, hey, client, I'm just doing social media management or graphic design. So there could be unicorns out there, but it's a long shot.
Yep. That's a good point. Really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Any other mistakes that you've seen out there aside from the top 4?
Let me
That's
think
okay.
of that.
So if a loan officer,
Those are the very common.
Yeah, very common. And I think that falls right within why you should hire somebody to help you hire a virtual assistant, whether it's Remote Assistant Scout or any other company out there. Getting that experience and that help really makes a big difference. It makes sure you get the right person, which means you don't need to fire fast because you have the right person. It truly helps you communicate the proper expectations up front, so you have those proper expectations, and then doing the onboarding and initial training, like Remote Assistant Scout does, really makes a huge difference in the end.
Yeah, especially if this would be your first time. I guess, I'm working with agencies would be worth the investment if this is something that you really want to implement.
Right. Exactly. Well, cool. I can't believe our time is up already. Any last thoughts you want to talk about, Gerard, to let loan officers know? Anything else about hiring a virtual assistant, or how can they get a hold of you? Like, what are your final parting thoughts?
Yeah, so I guess the parting thought is really, this system really works. You just really have to find, again, the right person for you, experience-wise, personality-wise. And then again, if this would be your first time working with virtual assistant, or if you just really want to know more about the system, so you can just go to www.remoteassistant scout.com for more information and to schedule your strategy call. This would be a huge step and wise decision for you guys to do if working with virtual assistant is something that you want to implement, because again, this works.
Yep. Definitely works. So a free strategy call at remoteassistantscout.com. We'll put the links below. So anybody wants to get a hold of Gerard or someone on the team, they are ready for you. So awesome. Thank you so much, Gerard. I appreciate you being on today.
Thank you so much, Richard. Talk to you later.
Okay.